What was your exposure to the original Australian show before boarding this project?
I didn't say it. That was horrible. I okay. Usually it's a little better.
You
I
want to take
had
it again?
too much coffee. No, I
No, okay.
definitely don't
We're
want
not
to
gonna
take
take
it.
it again.
My name is Russ Milheim. I'm from The Direct. Thank you both for talking to me today about the show.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys are throwing around jokes nonstop in the show. And so I was just wondering how much of that is improv versus, sticking with the script.
You know, it's so funny. I was talking to Nahnatchka at lunch, and she was saying that they were getting similar questions. And she and Sally, our two creators, were talking about how they loved letting us improv. And I was like, that's so interesting because we were talking about how much we liked just saying your words.
Totally.
And so it's interesting the two perspectives on that. But I think they definitely gave us space to improv, and we did for sure. But also something we've been talking about a lot during press is how Sally and Nahnatchka just really nailed so perfectly the musicality of the comedy and the plot and just the the dimensions of these characters that you really didn't want to deviate too much from the script because it was already just so perfect as is.
Yeah, like good writers, even when you shift a prepositional phrase,
Yeah.
it sort of shifts the joke in a weird way. And I think pretty early on we were like, oh, this is our holy grail.
Yeah.
And we'll find the pockets where we can play, but we wanted to honor our incredible writers.
Yeah. What was your exposure to the original Australian show before boarding this project?
I didn't say it. That was horrible. I okay. Usually it's a little better.
You want
I
to take
had
it again?
too much coffee. No, I
No, okay.
definitely don't
We're not
want to
gonna
Uh,
take
take
it sounded good to me, I guess, but
it.
Stephanie, your characters are always calling Ruby a terrible person. Do you agree?
Well, I think flawed. I think she's very flawed, and I think she means well. And I had to figure out a way to love her. So I think that's probably my perspective on that. But I do think that the question she's asking is quite innocent, and she has a journey. She's lucky. She gets 8 episodes to figure it out. Um, and she does figure some out for sure.
On that note, for both of you, how do you personally relate to your characters the most, and what are some of your favorite qualities or quirks that they both have?
I think AJ is arrested development is definitely the wrong term because it sounds negative, but I think there's a lot about her that still really enjoys the wonder in the world. And I think I'm very similar to that. I still like to kind of like, it's probably why I do this for a living, to make believe and to embrace the magic that still exists. And I feel like maybe that's part of her way of avoiding the fact that she doesn't love where she's ended up in life. But regardless, I definitely felt a similarity in that and found a lot of joy in embracing that part of her. Um, yeah, so I would say that's probably like the biggest similarity that I felt with her.
Mm. Yeah, I do love love. I do love it
Fair, that's fair.
ultimately. And I think that is a thing that felt like a core that we shared. And I do think sometimes, it is a comedy, and like, I love playing characters and shifting them outside of myself, but every so often I think like Stephanie's silly will sort of like plume out of different characters. So I do think sometimes you get a little like burst of my own chaos.
When it comes to the show, the premise as a whole, and with how crazy it is, what is your favorite thing with how this series handles it and the topics in general?
I mean, I feel like you said this earlier today a couple of times that the show really doesn't try to fit into any specific mold. And I think so much of that was in the confidence of Natch and Sally understanding that. And then obviously also the confidence of Peacock and all the executives allowing the space for it to just be its own thing. And so I think, yeah, I would say that just sort of allowing it to live in the world that we created is the most special thing about it, that it's really not trying to fit into any particular genre. Like it kind of has a piece of all of them in it. And it really is its own little magical monster.
I want to say too is that like I think this cast is so amazing, and they're amazing because everybody's so funny, but also everybody's a really special actor. And I think that with something that is so high concept, you have to have people who are also down to get grounded and find the depth within the story and make you care about these characters and not just have it feel like one big joke. So I think that was also what made it possible to just be like, this is this little world we're creating, and here's our little swing at it.
Congratulations on pulling it off. It's a fun one. It's very wild and wacky for sure.
It is. It is.
Yeah. What was for both of you, what was your original exposure to, the original Australian show?
I found out about it when I got the audition for this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same. Had not watched it, still have not watched it. That was intentional.
Yeah.
Once, this show came around and we were all kind of a part of it, I think made a conscious effort to not be influenced too strongly.
Yeah, you want to do justice to the writing in front of you and not do like a bad impression of something that was its own sort of thing that was good.
Yes.
What was something you guys felt you added to your characters through your performance that maybe wasn't originally on the page?
Charm and
Hair, more hair.
Yeah, definitely have a lot more hair than the character did on the page.
I'm not sure. That's a good question for Sally and Naz.
That is
not that we won't answer it, but yeah, I'd be interested to hear their answer on that.
No, I think just in terms of the writing, the characters were so well drawn out and so specific that, at least for Richie, I was able to find things in him that I related to so strongly, and it felt very, very natural and also nuanced. And just the way these people spoke it just sounded really right. I know that's a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
So I think they did a great job of casting the right people, because I think, for instance, like Stephanie is such a great voice for Notch and Sally's writing. They were such a good marriage of actor and writer that sometimes I was like, and by the end they definitely were, but it really felt, and I asked Stephanie, I was like, did they write this for you to start? And, it's sort of like what came first, the chicken or the egg, because they really were able, once they found us, they were really able to capture our voices too.
Yeah, I think it went both ways. I think it was just cast really well. Like the right people were playing the right roles. It didn't feel like, oh, the algorithm's off by one or something like that.
Right.
When it comes to this crazy premise, right? What is your favorite thing about how the concept is handled with this show?
I mean, I guess when I was reading and watching it, I'm like curious, like once you know what's going on, you're like, oh, how's that person gonna get it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just a good, I think what I really love about it is its sort of wide spectrum of tone that, it's not a whodunit feel, but it has this natural inherent hook in it, as, you want to find out what's happening. And so it's kind of a mystery. And then it has this, like dark comedy. It actually, in a lot of ways, reminded me of something from the 90s, like Jawbreakers or something like that, or like
Oh yeah.
Drop Dead Gorgeous, like these old dark comedies that really don't get made anymore. And so it felt, the right amount of sincere, earnest, campy, self-aware, and also grounded in moments that some of the, the movies that, I just mentioned are.
There's a lot of jokes. Oh, were you about to say something?
Oh, nothing. That
No.
I just saw Jawbreaker recently, and I
Oh,
was
you
like,
did?
yeah, you're totally right.
I have seen it a long
it-
time,
it
actually.
scratches a similar itch in a way. Like,
There's a lot of jokes flying nonstop in this show, and it made me think. So, how much was improv versus written, versus the written script?
I mean, there is some improvising in the show, and I think per person it kind of varies, but the scripts were so well written and so specifically written. Sometimes it would sound wrong if you got a word or two off, because it was so rhythmic that sometimes you just wanted to stick to the script. But there were also a lot of moments that you could, insert your own take, your own your own flavor, so to speak.
Yeah, there was pockets of improvising for sure, but then a lot of the writing was sort of like, I don't say it's like mathematics, but it was like this plus this equals this, so you can't deviate over there
It
because then the equation won't end up right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was almost musical. Like sometimes I would say a line differently and I would forget my next line because I was just bumped off rhythm and I'm like, wait, what? It didn't sound right coming out
Yeah.
sometimes.
If an ex were to come to you and be like, "Hey, you're gonna die, uh, any day now, no warning. What's something crazy that you would immediately want to go do?"
Get tested.
Yeah.
What I want to, if I knew I was gonna
Like a
die.
bucket list item.
Oh man, bucket list item. I don't know. I'd try to find someone with a potion to save me. I guess that's
Yeah.
what
I mean, it's a good question and one of those that I'm sure like I'll answer it in my head in the shower like in 4 days where I'm like, oh, that's a good one. That's what I'll.
What that you should do is ask yourself that now, because
Yeah.
we're all gonna die someday. So like you should really make that list now and just do it. Probably got time. So just that's what you should do. That's my advice.
Right. Like, I don't know, maybe just like go for a walk. You know, just
Super
kind of
crazy, super crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe just binge laid if you live until the 19th of December,
Last question for you guys. What is the most unique moment either of you had on this show compared to your previous body of work?
I'd say for me, this is gonna be well, whatever. I haven't worked on a lot of like sets in the traditional way. Like we made a fake living room. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of new to me. A lot of stuff I've done has always been like on location with a little bits of sets here and there. So for me, it was kind of new just to be like, oh, this is like Hollywood or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I've done a bunch of
Yeah.
stuff, but not like in that traditional, like here's a living room set. So for me, that was cool.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. I feel like this is a corny answer, but the experiences are so important sometimes. Like I almost at this moment value experiences more than like, if something doesn't turn out the way you thought it was going to turn out, it's sort of like, well, at least it was a good experience. And this was post, a writer strike and we were all, I felt like I hadn't worked in like a year or something and over a year. And so this experience just felt very warm and like we would get together and do these table reads and it was just like it's just a really great job that did not feel at all like a job. And we all laughed a lot. And so
yeah.
that was really nice.
Yeah, the table reads are fun. There wasn't things you had to go to where you're like, oh, not that I'm ever like that really, but like it was just all pleasant.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
Yeah,
like to hang out. It's like, oh.
Yeah, like this right now. It's sort of like, oh, no, I'm just kidding.
My name is Russ Milheim from The Direct. Thank you guys both for talking to me today about the show.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you.
you.
Nice to meet you guys as well. Congratulations on pulling it all together.
Thank you.
Now, I was reading that, the rights to the original Australian show, got back to Universal in like 2011. 13 years later, here we are. How long have you guys both been involved and like how has the project evolved over the years?
We both came on in 2020, like a few weeks into COVID, I think it was. We glommed onto this. John Davis, who's a producer, exec producer on the show, has a deal at Universal, and he got the rights. So he pitched it to us, and we were like, "Yes, 1,000%, we're in." We couldn't see each other because we were, quarantined, but we started to develop the idea of this dark comedy.
I don't think we would have anyway.
Sally doesn't like to be in person.
Yeah.
So,
But I do think we also developed this entirely on text.
did we?
Yeah, because we didn't start FaceTiming and Zooming until later in the
Right.
process. But
Right.
yeah, it's easy to develop a show that way.
Yeah, developed via text.
Hey, whatever works best.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you guys talk about how you wanted to, or what you wanted to keep similar with this show compared to the Australian original, and what you definitely wanted to adjust and change?
Yeah, there was so much. I mean, starting from the premise, we loved so much about the original, and we kind of wanted to leave that as it was. I mean, it's so great as it is, and we just wanted to, have it exist as that. We did steal from it. I think all the things we really loved about it, we would keep, especially the pilot. I think plot-wise, the pilot is very similar to the Australian. But we loved the humor. We loved the awkward humor, and we wanted to bring that
in and keep. And there are things that they did in that series that they may have done lightly, but we made like bigger deals of, or vice versa. But there's so much of it we love that we just wanted to kind of keep going and build off of it.
And then amplify it for like an American audience, you know? So it's like have her be a little, you know, more less self-aware of who she was and like the effect that she's had on people in her past. She might not be aware of and is forced to kind of go backwards and confront some of this herself, really, like her past behavior. That was also fun.
It is a wild concept. How did you work to hook audiences as quickly as possible and get them invested and not lose them at any point?
I think for us, like it was really sort of doling out the idea, making sure Ruby, because wanting it to feel like, yes, this big idea is happening, but what if it really happened to you? You know, so have her believe it, but not too soon. Have her go through the paces of this can't be, I can't be killing these people in all these random ways, but they are somehow linked to me. And then once her best friend, AJ, puts together that they start dying in the order that she slept with them, that really freaks her out. But then she goes to like the gynecologist, she goes to the police, like she takes these moves that you would actually do. And so hopefully that like gets people interested, you know, and it's like if this was happening, what would I do? And then it just takes off from there. And yeah.
Do you guys have so like what are the big plans here? How many seasons would you like to see this go for, or do you think it's more of a contained story, like one or two?
Definitely, I think it could go beyond one. I think
Yeah.
we end the first season on a note of like what happens next, where does this go, and giving us some like more territory to cover. I don't know that this is an 8 or 9 season show. I think having small orders like because this is 8, I think is good because I think we took everything we wanted to do and we tried to jam it in. I mean, there were so many things we wanted to do that we actually didn't have time for. So it's a quick paced show. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a couple
Yeah.
seasons would be ideal. Definitely season 2. We know what we
Yes.
would want to do. So that would be great.
I noticed in the show there's a lot of talk and references to Amanda Knox. Can you talk about, incorporating her and those references into the series?
Well, we're huge fans of Amanda Knox. Love her. We really, really love her. What we did was I'm obsessed with true crime and murder, and so we had one character. We have AJ kind of do that as she's trying to solve the mystery and help put the sex timeline up for Ruby, and it becomes sort of a murder board. And she's playing detective, so it helped to have a character who's kind of already obsessed with that.
Yeah.
And we just kind of we loved that case as a case that's one that she's always been into. So, and it's someone who didn't actually commit the crime, so she sees Amanda as like this kind of murder icon, the way I see her.
The way Sally
Yeah,
sees her.
like a queen.
For both of you, what was the most unique challenge you faced while working on this show that you maybe hadn't run into before on any of your other projects?
I think it was the balance of the tone, you know, like killing people in various ways and making sure that that felt connected to her. You know, there's a lot of different kinds of deaths. Um, and really wanting it, you know, it's a comedy, there's a lot of hard jokes. But then sort of taking a moment and having this other element, this darkness, not overtake the comedy and also not play too subservient of a role, but really to enhance and sort of that handoff, I think, between the two was a fun challenge.